childcare costs, housing crisis. So don't think that when you move to the Netherlands, you're just going to have this welcoming committee at the airport dancing. I've told you now. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new, hi, my name is Josephine, and please don't forget to give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you so much for coming back. In today's video, I'll be addressing the harsh realities of moving to the Netherlands in 2026. One of the most asked questions that I get on my Instagram is, how do I move to the Netherlands? How do I get a job in the Netherlands? How do I change my life by moving to the Netherlands? And anytime I see those questions, I just feel like I hope that anyone who is making that decision has taken into consideration every facet, every single aspect, both the good and the not so great things about living in the Netherlands. So today I've decided to share these harsh realities so that you can consider them when you're making your decision about moving to the country or not. Without further ado, let's get on with this video. Now, the number one harsh reality of moving to the Netherlands in 2026 is the housing crisis. Listen, we are not just saying these things because we want to make life a bit difficult for you. No, the housing crisis in the Netherlands right now is insane, especially if you intend to live in a big city or in neighboring cities that are closer to the big cities. Towards the end of 2025 alone, the hike in housing price has gone up over 10%, and it has not been great at all, especially for the newbies, the people that are moving in. It could literally take you months and months for you to find accommodation here in the Netherlands. So if you're planning to move here, I think that you definitely need to consider this. Either you start looking for accommodation on time, I would even say 6 months before your move, to make sure that you've secured a place. I would recommend that when you move, don't just consider the bigger cities, because definitely these are the cities where these crises are much worse. Consider smaller cities away from the bigger cities like Amsterdam, Rotterdam, Delft, Eindhoven, Utrecht. Just consider other smaller cities and see if you can be able to find accommodation there. This one affects both Dutch nationals and immigrants. So I've even seen in the news a lot of Dutch young people who are finding it extremely difficult to get their first homes. The Netherlands is said to be in short of about 500,000 homes. So I'll say have this in mind when making your decision, that it might not be easy for you to find a place, and then start on time to start looking for where you would stay if you eventually decide to move to the country. Another thing to have in mind, especially if you're moving from a country where the cost of living is not quite high. The Netherlands is the 9th most expensive country in Europe, with the average cost of living 22% higher than the European average. I needed this to sink in, okay? Life can be expensive here. If you're looking for a country that is not expensive, that you're able to manage and you're able to, do life without spending a lot of money, I would say that the Netherlands is not for you, in my opinion. I've even heard of people traveling to Germany to be able to buy groceries once a month or once in 2 months, especially people that are living at the Dutch-German border. They mentioned that groceries and gas are significantly cheaper in Germany than they are in Netherlands. I can't confirm this because I've never tried it, but that's just to give you a perspective. The cost of living in general is quite high. So the Netherlands is not particularly an affordable country to live in. So this is something that I would definitely say you should have in mind if you intend to move to the country. If you are on a budget and you're looking for, a place for you to stay and manage your finances and not spend too much, that is not too expensive, I don't really think the Netherlands, especially at this moment, is for you. Now, another reality that you need to consider when moving to the Netherlands, especially for those of us that are moving from countries like the United States, who are moving solely because they feel like the US is becoming a bit more hostile. I want you to also have in mind, I don't think the Netherlands is as hostile or as divided, especially when it comes to politics, like the US. But in recent years, I would say that the country is increasingly becoming more polarized, and the election that we just concluded is proof of that. Now, the party that won the majority votes in the Netherlands won only 26% of the vote. Okay, that means that 74% of the Dutch people did not vote for that party. And then if you look at the votes, most of the votes were somewhere in the center right, I think. So that kind of gives you an indication that the Netherlands is not, this small country and very uniform and all progressive as people people tend to portray them to be. Maybe in comparison to other countries, I would say yes. But when you live in the country, you would see that people actually do have their varying opinions. People actually do disagree in policies, and it's not as unanimous, in my opinion, as people kind of imagine the Netherlands to be. So I want you to have that in mind, that the country is getting a bit more polarized by the day. That leads me to the next point, that I think that the Netherlands, especially in 2025, 2026, is becoming a bit more hostile to foreigners. Now, hear me out, okay? Dutch people, don't come for me. Months leading to the election, we saw a lot of protests against immigration, against asylum. And it's not just in the Netherlands, so I don't want to put it that, oh, the Dutch people are becoming anti-immigrant or anti-immigration. No, I think that what we are seeing in the West in general, so in the US, in the UK, even in Norway, in Sweden, there has been this rise in anti-immigration. People are beginning to feel the full weight of immigration. So for instance, in the Netherlands, the housing crisis has been insane. Cost of living has been insane. So a lot of Dutch people actually have this opinion that if we've not solved the issue that is happening or that we're experiencing in the Netherlands, why are we consistently having immigrants still coming into the country at the high number or the high rate that we have today? So I would say that a lot of Dutch people are becoming a bit more anti-immigration, especially at the rate that it currently is today. So don't think that when you move to the Netherlands, you're just going to have this welcoming committee at the airport dancing, very excited to receive you. I don't think that that's the case, to be honest. You know, depending on where you go, the city that you go to, you may not experience that friendliness, because online, I feel like the Netherlands is portrayed as this country that is very friendly, very happy to accommodate foreigners. And I don't think that's necessarily the case, especially in recent times. So have that in mind, okay? That's a harsh reality you need to consider when moving to this beautiful country. Now, the next harsh reality you need to have in mind before moving to the Netherlands is the language barrier. Now, hear me out. Over 95% of Dutch people speak English. So I always say that the Netherlands or the Dutch people are one of the best English-speaking, non-English-speaking people that you ever meet. A lot of them are well-educated. So when you move to the country, you don't feel that immediate need to learn the language, especially if you are an English speaker or if you're a native English speaker. You can pretty much get around with not knowing much Dutch. But if your intention is to stay here for a very long time, I would definitely say that learning the language should be prioritized as you're moving into the country, because for you to be able to build a very deep connection here in the Netherlands, you really need to know how to speak the language. And as you stay here more and more, you may have more desires to integrate more into the society, contribute more into the society, then the language becomes very essential. And if you don't make that active decision to learn the language, you may be able to get around, especially if you're living in bigger cities like Rotterdam, Amsterdam, you may be able to get around without ever seeing the need to learn the language until it is late, or until maybe 10 years down the line, you don't feel integrated, you still feel like a foreigner. Sometimes, to be honest, for me, even having lived here for 6 years, my Dutch is still not where I want it to be. And the major reason is because I work in an international company, so it has been a bit challenging for me to practice my Dutch. Sometimes I still feel in my heart like, will I ever be able to speak Dutch to the degree that I can, entirely express myself? I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I still feel that fear in my head. So I would say have that in mind. Not being a native Dutch speaker, you need to make arrangements to learn the language as soon as you move in, especially if you intend to stay here for a long period of time. Don't fall for the idea that you can get along, live your life without ever speaking Dutch, which I think you can, especially if you're living in bigger cities, but you will never be able to integrate fully into the Dutch society if you don't speak Dutch. That is 100%. You will never be able to form some certain type of friendship, and connection with Dutch people if you don't speak their language of expression, the language where they express, feelings and emotions. If you're not able to express or communicate to them at that level, it may just be difficult to create that bond. So that's just something to have in mind if you're planning to move to this beautiful country. Now, if you're moving to the Netherlands with kids, you need to come to the front so you can hear this one. Now, the Netherlands is one of the most child-friendly countries in Europe. I would say that the rate of child violence is quite low in comparison to other countries. Child literacy rate is also quite high. Education system here in the Netherlands is quite good, and the kids have free compulsory education until they're about 18 years old. So your kids are likely to have pretty much a good life if you move into the Netherlands. However, you need to have in mind that it is not cheap, especially if you have much younger kids. Daycare cost in the Netherlands is insane. If your child was to go to daycare every single day in the Netherlands, it may even cost you at least one salary for you to be able to accommodate that expense. So I need you to have that in mind. And if you are a double income household, that is even more prevalent for you. The higher the income you have, the lesser amount of money or refund that you get from the government for your daycare cost. This cost is calculated based on the household income. If you have a double income and both of you are doing well in your careers and earn quite high, then it's likely that you'll be receiving really little money back from the government, and you're likely going to be bearing most of that daycare cost. And let me tell you, that cost is never enjoyable. Anytime I see that daycare cost, I'm just like, why? So have this in mind, childcare cost is quite high. Then even after your child starts compulsory education, your child can start going to normal public school from the age of 4. Compulsory education starts from the age of 5. So that means that from 4 years old, your child will be able to go to school, and that education is free. However, most schools start around 8 in the morning and close around 2. So that means that you need to pick your child up by 2 p.m. every single day. And if you're not able to do that because you're working full time, of course, then you have to enroll your child to what we call Bouter School spells out, which is after school care. And this you have to pay. And the cost is even, I think, a bit more than daycare costs. So have this in mind, because those costs add up. I'm not even kidding. They add up significantly, and they're going to take a chunk of your salary. So have that in mind if you're moving to the Netherlands, if you've not considered this, or if you've assumed that child education is free. Indeed, it is free from 4 years, but remember that most schools close by 2, and then you have to provide after school care, and those ones you have to pay for, and they are not cheap. So have that in mind, okay? A few days ago, I received a letter from the Toeslag, the part of the government that takes care of the refund that you get for paying daycare. But these guys, they sent me a letter saying that they overpaid me last year, and they asked me to pay a significant amount of money, okay? And listen, it was not funny. So when I was making this video, I said, I'm gonna warn my parents, okay? My parents here, remember, childcare cost is still quite expensive in the Netherlands. So even though the education is free, you have to pay for after school care, you have to pay for daycare. Especially if you have a double income household, the money you get back from the government is not much. So it's gonna cost you a bit. So have that in mind. Now, the next harsh reality that you need to consider when moving to the Netherlands is this. The Dutch culture encourages work-life balance, and that is a good thing. I know you'll be wondering, why would encouraging work-life balance be a challenge? Listen, if you're coming from a culture that is very hardworking, a hustle culture, and you get a lot of benefit from hustling, or hustling is rewarded, the Netherlands may be a challenging culture to adapt to. If you're a workaholic, if you're someone who loves to work really hard, and you're someone who has always been rewarded for those your hard works with maybe financial incentives, promotions, the Netherlands may be a bit challenging for you, because in the workplace, work-life balance is encouraged. So what that means is that if you work from morning till you drop, I don't want to say you will not be rewarded for it, but there is not necessarily an incentive to go out and above your way or out and beyond. There's not just that incentive. And then secondly, the higher you earn as well, the more tax you pay, the less child benefit you get. So at the end of the day, it's just as if you're a hustler, right? If you're someone who loves to earn a lot of money, the more you earn, the more you tax, the more that you pay your childcare. I feel like the culture is not very rewarding for people who are hustlers, natural hustlers, or high flyers who want to make a lot of money. So have this in mind, okay? Because I think that people don't necessarily talk about it. Work-life balance is great. Please don't get me wrong. And I love the culture, okay? It's something that I enjoy. But I think that there are people who naturally are high flyers. These are people that naturally work hard. These are people that naturally want to hustle, want to make a lot of money, want to be millionaires. Those type of people, I feel the culture can be a little bit hostile because the incentive to actually go above and beyond sometimes seem not to be there. And that's something that I need you to have in mind, especially if you fall into that category. Okay? I've told you now. Now, another thing to have in mind is that I think a few months ago, the parliament actually moved to increase the citizenship, the number of years you would have stayed in the Netherlands before applying for citizenship, from 5 to 10 years. Something that I'm not sure about is if this also affects the permanent residency route. I'm not sure, but at least the citizenship route, it has not been approved yet, so it's not a law yet, but it's at the moment in consultation and we don't know what the final outcome is going to be. So if you're moving to the Netherlands with the hopes that maybe in a couple of years, in 5 years' time, you will be able to qualify to apply for Dutch citizenship, I need you to have this in mind that this may be changing. It hasn't changed yet, but at least this is a proposal that is currently going on. So have this in mind that it may take you a much longer to be able to qualify to apply for Dutch citizenship. Now that we're talking about citizenship, another thing to have in mind is that for you to have Dutch nationality through naturalization, you need to denounce your current citizenship. So the Netherlands doesn't allow dual citizenship except for, a few cases. For instance, if you're married to a Dutch person or you were born and grew up here, you've spent, I think, about 18 years here in the Netherlands. So there are just a few exceptions here and there. But for the most part, if you're applying directly to become Dutch through naturalization, you're not allowed to hold dual citizenship. So that means you need to denounce the citizenship that you already own. So just in case, you're moving to the Netherlands, you have plans to be here long term, have this in mind, okay? Consider these things as well when making your decision. Now, another thing to have in mind is that the Netherlands can be quite lonely. A study done in 2022 where they interviewed expats all around the world. In this study, the Netherlands came out as one of the loneliest countries in the world for expats. And I have a video on this channel that goes into details about this study and why I think the country is that way. I'm going to put that video somewhere in the card so you can check it out. I also shared tips and tricks on how to deal with that loneliness when you move to the country. So I decided to bring it up here as well, that the Netherlands can feel a bit alienating or lonely for expats, especially if you don't have any family in this beautiful country. Don't get me wrong, the Dutch people are nice. I have had really great experience with the Dutch people, but there's just something about creating that connection with a typical Dutch person as an adult that is just a bit challenging. One of it definitely could be the language barrier, being able to learn the language enough for you to be able to communicate and have that deep conversation with them. I think another thing is that making friends as adults can be a bit challenging, especially if you don't have a lot in common. And a lot of Dutch people already have, their friends that they grew up with. So it may be a bit challenging to be able to connect with you and have that friendship. I wouldn't say that it doesn't happen. As I said, I have a video that goes into details regarding this, but it's just something to have in mind. Have in mind, how am I going to deal with that potential loneliness? Do I make it a point of duty to still retain the friends that I have in the country that I'm moving from so that they can be there for me when I'm trying to find my footing in the Netherlands or when I'm trying to create that community here in the Netherlands? I also recommend to deal with this loneliness that when you come in, you now have to take that intentional decision to go out there and meet people who have similar interests as you do. So register in a sports club if you enjoy playing football, register in a football club, basketball club, be involved in the kids' school when they ask for volunteers. So all these things can help to expose you to the Dutch people and allow you to be able to form that connection. So have this in mind when moving to the Netherlands. Now, the last thing that I will say you should please have in mind and state it as a harsh reality is the Dutch weather. Okay, some of us, especially if you're coming from a very tropical country and you're so used to a lovely weather all year round. I'm Nigerian, so I'm telling you, it was one of my first culture shocks when I moved to the UK before moving to the Netherlands. The weather, it's not that I didn't know, like I knew that the weather was cold, but all year, almost all year round, the rain, I was like, no, please. It was a bit challenging for me to get used to. So I would say the weather is not necessarily the nicest weather. It's very, very rainy here in the Netherlands. I would say though that this year we had quite a good weather. I was super proud, okay? We didn't have a harsh summer. So the summer wasn't too hot. It wasn't also too rainy. So I was very happy with the weather that we got this year, if I'm being honest. But generally speaking, the Netherlands is a very wet country, so it's quite rainy. I would say have this in mind, okay? If you're someone coming from a location that is very, very, tropical, really beautiful, know that the weather here is not really 100%. Also, we don't really have, mountains, beautiful lakes, blue, crystal blue lakes and all of that. These are not things that you generally find in the Netherlands, okay? If you want to have all those things, you may need to move a little bit down to Italy or Spain. But the Netherlands does not necessarily have the most beautiful natural landscapes that people travel all the way to see. I know somebody is going to tell me that there is a mountain in Limburg. Please, that's not a mountain, okay? That's a hill. Don't come for me, please. If you're not used to, having a very flat, not very interesting natural landscapes, then it may be a shocker for you. So make sure that you're comfortable with that before making your decision to move to this country. These are some of the harsh realities of, moving to the Netherlands. Maybe I've forgotten a couple. I don't know. If you're a Dutch person, let me know in the comment section. Are there some certain things that you think people should know and prepare themselves about moving to the Netherlands so that it can help them make the decision if the Netherlands is actually a country you should consider or not. Now, if you're an immigrant or an expat who is living in the Netherlands, let me know if there's something that I missed out here. Is there something that you think other people should definitely know to help them make their decision whether to come or not? Thank you once again for watching. Please don't forget to give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel. I just started making videos after 2 years hiatus here on YouTube, so I'm trying to grow my channels and my views, so your love and support will mean so much to me. Thank you once again, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.